Welcome, welcome. Actually, here we go. Sign, hold on, copy, enable auto transcription. Okay, welcome. It's set. All right, welcome to the 2021 NMOA State Clinic. This is the basketball portion of the state clinic. We're going to go over a couple of housekeeping things, some Zoom etiquette things. So out of respect for our presenter as well as the individuals that are on here. If you can stay muted throughout the duration of the presentation, unless asked a question. If you do have a question during the presentation, feel free to put that in the chat box. Dana or myself will read those off to our presenter and they can answer. Again, we will save some time at the end for you to unmute and ask any questions that you might want to ask. And last but not least, as many of you have heard me say before, if you have a what if question, don't ask it because we probably don't have the answer. So if you have to say what if, then it's probably a question that we'll wait for. But with that, before we hand it over to Dana to introduce our presenter, as many of you know, she will be leaving us. She will be going to the National Federation. She will be taking a new role. And we want to play this short video. And I think this is because this represents the many lessons that Dana has taught us the past 24 years. And when I wrote the officiating rules to live by, I thought about not only the many lessons that my mentors and other officials taught me, but really the many lessons that our fearless leader taught us. So thank you, Dana, for inspiring the entire state of sports officials. All right, and with that, first and foremost, I just want to thank Dana Pappas for her years of service to the New Mexico Officials Association and the contribution she has not only has inspired myself, but an entire organization for the past 24 years. And so we all want to just say thank you to her. But with that, I'll go ahead and hand it over to Dana.
Thank you, Nate. And Nate and I are sharing a microphone so that we don't have all kinds of weird feedback. So I told Nate, even though I'm usually super shy and quiet, I'll do my best to project and use a little coach voice. Welcome to the 2021 NMOA State Clinic. We are excited to have you all here. Hopefully next year it will actually be live and in person and face to face and the way we love things within the NMOA family. But for now, I can see some of your faces on my screen, which is wonderful and welcoming and just makes me feel good. So welcome and welcome to the start of a new season. So today, just so you kind of know the lay of the land, first of all, if you have not entered your full name in the participant box, please make sure you do that so we can give you credit. It looks like most of you have, but there are a couple of people listed as iPhone or something else. We don't know who you are. So if you can make sure it shows, that would be fantastic. Sally Marquez, our executive director and also the director of basketball. She is on with us tonight and will stand ready for questions should you have any at the end of the session. At the end of the session, she'll be happy to take those on for her. So welcome, Sally, and thank you for being here with us this afternoon.
You know what? Y'all want me to drop you off?
No, we'll just walk.
And another thing, please make sure that you are muted. That was a great cue. If you can make sure you're muted and stay muted. If you've got questions, again, type them in the chat. And we'll also, if there's time at the end, we can unmute and ask questions at that time. Our clinician tonight is somebody who really needs no introduction, but heck, I'm going to introduce him anyway. It is Jack Jones, and that is a name that's really a staple within officiating here in the state of New Mexico. His officiating career has spanned over 40 years at the high school and collegiate level. He began working basketball and football with the NMOA in 1973, with football from 1973 to 1987 with the Las Cruces Football Officials Association, and 1990 to 1994 with the Albuquerque Football Officials Association for an 18-year career in high school football. He refereed basketball with the NMOA from 1973 to 1998 and with the UIL in Texas for 10 years. During his tenure with us, he worked 11 NMAA state basketball championships and 2 all-star games. In addition to interscholastic officiating, he was a football official in the RMAC from 1990 to 1994 and officiated men's Division I and Division II collegiate basketball from 1981 through 1997 in the RMAC, Pacific West and Western Junior College Athletic Conferences and the Pacific Coast Athletic Conference. He's been an NCAA Division I women's basketball referee since 1974 with the Western Athletic, Mountain West, and Big West conferences. He actually at one point came out of retirement from high school football officiating to come back and be the Las Cruces Football Officials Association group leader for a couple of years. He's been a football clinician for us, for coaches and officials, and has been a trainer and clinician in the sport of basketball since 1985. We were just talking about that. So for a couple of minutes, but for as many years of service and leadership roles within the association, Jack was deservedly inducted into the NMOA Hall of Fame in 2015. So forever a role model, forever a mentor for all of us, and one of my life heroes. I'd like to welcome Jack Jones back with us this evening. Jack, you're on.
Thank you, Dana. I get a little nervous every time I hear that stuff, hoping I can live up to that. This is pretty good. I didn't realize when we talked about this 1985, I was one of the first one, and I thought about that the other day, but a little bit more nervous doing this in front of a computer. As you know, we've spent a lot of time in the summers working at camps and classrooms, and I can talk and walk around and seem to do a little better, but unfortunately, I hate to say I'm starting to get used to this a little bit. It doesn't mean I like it, but that's the way we'll do it. Before I do get going, those of you that can see me, if I had a game tonight, I would have shaved. Okay, so that's something I've done in the summer. Sometimes it's come off quicker than it has this year, and who knows, it may not come off. But so let's get started. Actually, the new rules changes and stuff this year. One mechanic and one just flat rule. And this is probably the only one that I will just read, because I do, as I've talked to Nate, and most of you know me, I like to just start talking. I don't like reading what's up on the screens and stuff like that. I like talking about what's on the screens. And this one is, the playing rules were modified to add a provision that allows for religious head coverings to be permitted without state association approval, as long as they are not made of abrasive or hard materials and provided they securely fit. This change removes the previous exception that required state associations to approve this type of heavy covering to be worn. That as actually something that's in the rule book. That's the only one I've got. I have one page. So the rest of this will be a little bit of review, points of emphasis, some of my own input, and some other stuff I've learned from lots of people. Going on, the next thing, mechanically, one thing. Signal 37 has been eliminated. For those of you that don't know what 37 was, that's the fist pump after a player control foul. The National Federation has now gone to a sequence of team control fouls. Well, there's one signal, but there's 4 things you got to do. First thing is every foul has to start with a fist up in the air. Boom. Now go back the way it used to be. Hand behind the head. Point the direction the ball is going to be going, and then where it's going to be thrown in. So I can remember, and I'm just going 10, 11 years ago when we had to stop doing this and do this. We had all kinds of invented signals when you've had habits for years and years, and all of a sudden you change something that was drastic. So it'll be a big change. You have to get used to it. But one thing I want to say about that, I mentioned that all fouls have to be with a fist up. That's what stops the clock, and that's what alerts people there is a foul. Also, don't just go up in here real quick. I know some of you will. I have. Everybody has. But there can be that slight little pause, and it's amazing as the more experience you get, how much you can process in maybe 1 or 2 seconds. You may be looking at the play, coming down the court, you're the lead, they're coming down the lane. This is going to be a block. This is going to be a block. This is going to be a block. There's the foul. You can process maybe, you know what, that was offense. So give that little pause, behind, direction, and then where it's going to be thrown in. So again, 36, the way I look at it right now, I mean, signal 37 is not even in the book anywhere anymore, correct? All right, so there's no need to do that. Okay, points of emphasis. Officiating mechanics will stay right on that with signals. When Nate mentioned, or Dana did, like when I started, and we all have mentors, when I started in 1973, nothing was like it is now, where we have summer camps, learn how to do the progression of signals and things like that. And the #1 official in southern New Mexico at that time's name was Willie Kite. And half of us couldn't recreate the signals he gave anyway, even if it was in the book. But probably one of the most wonderful people, official, everything I've ever known. But he was the man, and that's who everybody looked up to. And I spent a lot of times traveling with him. But we've all changed all that. We have guidelines for signals, and we need to do the signals that are in the book. We don't start adding all of our little mannerisms and stuff like that while we're reporting fouls. And there was a reason for that. We don't want the personality, the personal style to come out. You don't have to have that. Now, I know, and I do, there's 3 or 4 times a game where my signal may be what it's supposed to be, but I may have to add something at the end. And, you know, it wasn't just a normal hold, it was a reach out and grab. But if you start doing those all the time, you've wasted. If you do that every time, then when you have to do it, it doesn't mean anything at the end. So do it, hit, hold, block, push. They're in there for a reason, and they're in there to be used. Your personal style will come out in your running gait, in your walking gait. And believe me, when I watch TV, it takes me about 5 minutes, and I just watch people run up and down the court. I can tell immediately who everybody I see is. So your style will come out in the way you run. Don't make that style come out in reporting and using your signals to the bench.
Real quick, just a quick note on just officiating mechanics and signals. With Dana going to the Federation and working on the COS and and she's going to have the opportunity to really up the game as far as training and development for officials across the country. And with that is going to be video. And you better believe that I will be sending her as much video of New Mexico officials as possible, so that we can be the state that is leading by example, and we're used for training purposes. And so proper mechanics and rulebook mechanics are going to be important when it comes to sending video in. Obviously, I can't send her any video that is going to have incorrect mechanics, because we can't use it, and we really want to use our video. So just start thinking about that as you prepare for the season.
Okay. Next, the one thing we need to just clarify is the timeout administration and stuff like that, calling the timeouts, when you call them. So we'll be in the next one. Timeouts are, when coaches and the call from the sideline, our focus is here. And we have coaches that can call timeouts. We have the ball being loose. We've really got to be aware of when we can and cannot call a timeout, and when a coach might be wanting one. We have to anticipate that. A lot of times the ball gets on the floor, everybody starts a mad dash. The coach may start hollering timeout before anybody's even got it yet. And we've all been there. And we've all been there, which I have, when my whistle's gone off when it shouldn't have, and I awarded them a timeout. And as the ball rolls towards me, and I pick it up. But pay special attention. Get ready for a coach to call a timeout during a loose ball, but there has to be possession, and it has to be possession by one of his players. Then they can have the timeout. Also, just anticipate when a coach may be wanting a timeout just to stop momentum. If a team gets 4-10 points in a row, they may want to stop the momentum, anticipate that. And once the ball goes through the hole, take a quick glance to the sideline. I guarantee if that coach wants a timeout after a basket's gone in, he's going to call it immediately. They work ahead of this. We've just given up 4 buckets in a row. If they get one this time, I'm going to have to call timeout. So they're calling timeout as it's going through the basket. So be ready for that. Be ready for the coaches. Make sure it's the head coach on the sideline that's calling it. There's been a few problems with that, but just anticipate the coach may be calling a timeout. And some of you have heard me say this before. We don't have to think like a coach, but we have to know what the coach is thinking. And that's one of the things we can be prepared for on the timeout administration. Okay. Unsporting conduct. Let's skip a couple of these. It's all about the same thing there, Nate. Boy, this is always a good one. Unsporting conduct. The committee is concerned about inappropriate conduct by players, everybody, bench personnel, spectators, everybody. And it's become an increasing problem. And it's not just because they're having unsportsmanlike acts, it's also because the officials have to decide what is unsporting. And all of us have different thresholds of what we can take, not take. And obviously some of the more experienced officials may be able to get the unsportsmanlike stuff stopped before it gets bad. Using lots of little things. We have formal warnings. We may have little comments on the sideline, but we've got to find out a way to get this under control. It is a rule. It is in the book, what they can and can't do. It's got a little subjectivity to it, and that's where it gets crazy. And I remember about 12 years ago, I was sitting at a clinic and the supervisor was sitting up there talking, we need to take this care of because it is a rule, just like traveling is a rule in the book. And a good friend of mine put up his hand, was called on and said, excuse me, it's not like that. When I call walking, I don't have to go to the motel room and send you a 2-page email explaining walking. I have to explain the technical foul. So it is a rule in the book. I don't know the number in this book, but Rule 10 is big in what we do. But get it taken care of early, and if you know it's going to get started, stop it. And if you can do it without it escalating, take a chance, go over there. You know, somebody with a lot of experience. This is where the guys that people have been working for a long time, this is when they need to take care of situations that maybe the people just starting can't. You know, do things like walk up, say, hey, coach, don't do that. I'm not going to let you do that. I'm not, coach, they always interrupt. I'm not talking to you. No, but I'm talking to you, and I'm not going to let you act like that and treat her like that. I will take care of it. Okay. And if you trust that person, and that person trusts you, they'll listen to you. When it gets to the point where you've got to do a formal warning, my words on that is, when you do this to a coach and everybody in the building knows you've done that, that's like going all in poker. You have no choice the next time it happens. Because if you don't take care of it after you've done this, you've lost credibility with your partners. You've lost credibility with certainly the coach on the other end and with supervisors and everybody else that's in. So if you can get it taken care of without having to make it just where everybody in the world sees it, try it. You know, I've done things like, you know, hey, coach, come on. We don't need you to act like that. She's pretty good. Give her a chance. You know, you're going to see it. I know it, and you'll know it too by the time the game's over. So let's get up and start straighten up and let's work better. Unsporting, that's the sideline. And you know what? I listened to a camp a long time ago, a high school camp, New Mexico. And one of the officials says, yep, I'll take all this stuff from the coach, but I'm not going to take any of that from the kids. You know, and we all said it at time, but think about that. I'm going to let the coach act like a kid, but I'm not going to let the kid act like a kid. That just doesn't make sense to me. Okay. So get that done, get it taken care of early, anticipate unsportsmanlike conduct, and try to get it taken care of, because nobody wants to take care of unsportsmanlike conduct in the last minute of a game. And usually it doesn't get, and that's more than a 2-page email. If it's taken care of in the last minutes, that goes on for days. That thread on those, sometimes you have to just keep going back and forth looking at all of them. So get it taken care of early. Okay. Screening. You know, there's a few things that are points of emphasis every year. And they all have, they're there for a couple of reasons. We don't do a very good job with it. And screening, hand checking, rebounding, all of those things lead to rough play. So what we're going to do is talk about real quick on the rules on screening, and then mechanically why we may be missing it. So first off, screening. Screening a stationary opponent. And there's two of those. Screening a stationary opponent in the field of vision. My hands are out. My field of vision is palms all the way like this. If my hands go back, I don't see them. That's not in my field of vision, which basically at the point of the shoulder, I can see a screener. If they're behind my shoulder, I can't see the screener. The rules are different. Screening a stationary opponent in their field of vision, I can get as close as I want without causing contact. And I have to be stationary. All the responsibility for that contact is now on the defensive player. I did not say it was a foul. I said if there is a foul at that point, the responsibility is on the defensive player. If I set a blind side or a out of the field of vision screen on a stationary opponent, I have to give them a chance to step and change direction. So if I come up straight from behind and I'm within a foot and they cannot change, the responsibility for that screen is on me, the screener. And if it impedes them from going where they want to go, that's a foul. because they're going to start trying to push to get through it. And we've missed the first one, which was an illegal screen, and that needs to be called. Okay. Next one is on moving opponent. This is where it gets a little subjective at times too. If we have a player running down the floor, guarding the dribbler, and I go up to set a screen, I have to give them time and distance. Those words, time and distance. Not less than 1 step, not more than 2 steps, depending on the speed of that player. That's where it gets a little subjective. Are you going to tell them they did 2 steps? Are you going to tell them they were running faster than this person? You know, you're going to feel that play and you're going to anticipate it coming and you're going to be able to make a call. Not all of them are fouls. Just because they screen somebody, that's running their offense. But be ready for that one, especially when you have a guard dribbling up the backcourt and then there's somebody standing right in the middle of the court setting the screen. They've been standing there for 6 seconds and they've had 10 steps to change direction. You see it coming, say, oh, this is not going to turn out good. And then they hit it. It looks like the old cartoons where somebody hits a wall and the player that hit the wall, you know, the Tom and Jerry cartoons where he just folds down and goes down to the bottom. And you're sitting there with a no call, which is probably the right call. But be ready, anticipate that, and get it stopped. Screening leads to rough play. If we don't call the screens, people start fighting through them, and that has just as much to do with getting the game out of control as any other rebounding, foul, post play, whatever, hand checking. Screening needs to be taken care of. So let's talk a little bit about it mechanically. 2 kinds of screens: ball screens, off ball screens. As Dana mentioned, 1973, when I did this for a lot of years, there was only 2 of us, and we were very good at officiating 2 plays at once. Last few years, when we have another person out there, we're not as good as we used to be at refereeing 2 different plays. So if I've got the dribbler or just the ball handler standing, and I'm too close, I can't see the screener coming. And all of a sudden the dribble starts and then there's a confusion, getting screened from the back. The defensive player's trying to fight through the screen. They rub the offensive player off their step and it surprises us and things happen. We either pass on it because we don't know what to call because we didn't get a good look. We didn't anticipate it. We luck out and maybe call it on the right person because we made it. It's a mess. Anticipate the screen coming on the ball screen. So back up off the play so you can see the court. Ball screens, there weren't any ball screens when I started fishing. Everything was motion offense. And that's hard to call. And it's hard to call for one person. Anticipate ball screens, get them stopped early, and it'll be easier. Off ball screens, same way. You're setting as the lead. Know the other team's offense. They've been setting a screen on this low block the whole game because they're trying to free up the 3-point shooter coming out. You know that screen's coming. Watch where the screener comes from and watch it set up. You know, this is your primary. You don't watch the primary. You watch plays in your primary. And that is the play. This is my whole area. But that's a lot of area, and I've only got 3 people in it, and this one's going to set a screen. Watch plays in your primary. Don't watch your primary. Watch plays in your primary. That makes sense? That screen.
That aha moment.
Oh, yeah. And you know what? I'm going to talk a little bit. I'll try to combine this a little bit with block charge. We also get surprised on block charges. We get surprised on screens. If you get surprised on a block charge, I don't know, most people, especially in this room, know I'm not a data person anyway. But I would say when you get surprised, 90% of the call is going to be on the defense. That's just the way it is. And you know that from working yourself. All of a sudden they drive to the basket. Where did they come from? That's got to be a block. Okay, that's surprise. Don't get surprised. Don't get surprised by the screen. Good. The other thing you've been taught in these camps, going 20 years back, referee the defense. Referee the defense. That's a novel idea. Referee the defense. That's who you're watching to see if they're going to foul. The screen is by an offensive player. At that point, you don't watch the defense, you watch the screener and get that call right. Okay. Traveling, oh boy, I just love the top of this. Thank you, Nate. Euro steps, spin moves, jump stops. 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, I don't know, I probably spent 3 NCAA meetings that we spent 30 minutes talking on spin moves. So I'm going to try to move that to the end. So Euro steps no different than shooting a layup. It's a lot of time it's laterally. Jump stops, we see jump stops. We got to call walking. We got to call traveling. Going back to Willie Kite, when I first started officiating, there were 2 rules sometimes. If somebody's standing in the lane flat-footed, call 3 seconds. It took them a second to get in there. They've been standing there a second. It's going to take them a second to get out. Okay. That move looked funny. That's got to be a walk. Well, that's what I learned for the first 3 or 4 years. Well, that doesn't work anymore. So let's talk about traveling. And I'm going to combine these two, a dribbler and somebody receiving a pass. What you can do when you catch the pass and what you can do, for no other word, catching the dribble. When you make that catch, if you have 1 foot on the floor, at the moment that ball's caught, that is the pivot foot. Whether you're catching your dribble or you're catching a pass. If you have both feet off the floor and they land approximately simultaneously, either one can be the pivot foot. If you catch the ball with both feet on the floor, either one can be the pivot foot. That's just the rule, and it's been that way forever. We don't have the extra half step on layups and stuff like that. If the pivot foot comes off the floor and the player is still in control of the ball when that pivot foot touches the floor back, that's a walk. It's travel. That pivot foot comes off the floor, they've got to shoot it or they've got to pass it before it comes back down. Plain and simple, it's travel. And that rule has not, I don't think that rule has ever changed as long as I've been doing this. We didn't add anything. Then we get down to jump stops. Jump stops, catch the ball, airborne, land on 1 foot, jump off that foot, land on 2 feet, approximately the same time. There is no pivot foot. You can jump and shoot, you can jump and pass, but there is no pivot foot. Okay. The Euro step is just a fancy way of the pivot foot hanging in the air for, it seems like eternity sometimes, before it comes back down and the whole world is rotating their hands in front of them on the bench, on the table, in the stands, and it's not. It just became fashionable the last 5 years, but it's all based on the pivot foot. It's not a walk till the pivot foot comes back to the floor. Spin moves. Spent 5 years trying to be convinced that you couldn't do a spin move without walking. Well, you know what? That may be right. But during the spin move, the officials got to identify which one's the pivot foot before you can make any call. Try to do that. Somebody coming down the floor, fake, spin around. You're not looking for the pivot foot. You're looking to see if they're going to run over somebody and get a charge or they're going to get blocked. Make sure if the walk is a walk. We call way too many walks that aren't, and we let way too many go that were. That's the thing about walking. And the 2 outside officials, how many have seen the play offensive rebound? Get it down, pump fake, jump back up and shoot it. The lead officials may be standing 6 feet away from it, and they're getting ready to get their shot blocked. They're getting ready to get hacked in the back of the head from behind when they go back up. I'm not worrying too much about walking at that point. I want my center and my trail when that pump fake off the offensive rebound and then they hop to another spot. I want one of them to get it. I've got it, but my focus is on block shots, fouls on the shot, things like that. Good. All right. Oh, another page of Euro stuff. I'm going right by it. We already went over the basic fundamentals of the travel. That, again, read that rule and it will make sense. Read that rule, apply it to the clips you're walking. You can read about walking. I didn't understand it for 10 years. You know, but so that's why they say it looks funny, you call walk. Well, I can't do that anymore. I get in trouble. Okay. Proper procedures after calling fouls and violations. And I've got on my little paper here the word pace. When the clock's running, the officials are working at the player's pace. If they're going very fast, so are we. But when the clock stops, I blow my whistle to get everything communicated and done correctly. Now they're all going to work at my pace. That doesn't mean I slow down and walk all over the place, but I need the pace to stop, call the foul, do the proper procedures. If it's get all the stuff taken care of at the table, make sure it's probably not going to be me administering the throw-in spot. I've got to point that throw-in spot so somebody else can come do it. And I'll be honest with you people, I'm terrible at that, pointing that spot. I do it sometimes and then I wonder why I did. And then most of the time I look at my films and I never did. But fist, verbally, 14 blue, hold, go report it. That's simple. Spot where it's going to be thrown in. If we're shooting 2, we don't want to get a lot of numbers in our mind. I may just 14 blue, Nate, that's my shooter. If it's on a shot, everybody knows who the shooter is. If it's a rebound, nobody knows who the shooter is except the one that called the foul. That's the one you've got to point. 14 blue, Nate, right there's my shooter. But I don't really want to start getting more numbers in my head than I have to because I've been known on occasion to report the shooter as the fouler, usually about a couple of times a year. Didn't get to work last year with all this stuff weird. I don't think I did it once. Probably the first year I've already gone through it and I did not do that once. So get that procedure done. If you have to give that little extra signal at the table that 3 or 4 times a year to sell it, you can do it. Like I said, don't do it all the time because then when you need it, it's not there. You got to give it a little extra hit. Do it, but don't do it all the time. When I get to just talk about my stuff. Okay. Well, wait a minute. There's one more. Rebounding. Let's get to the rebounding. This is going to fall in line with what I'm saying. Remember what I said about points of emphasis are always to stop rough play, rebounding, post fouls, screens, hand checks. If somebody's trying to jump for a rebound and they can't leave the floor, somebody's probably got them hooked. There's nothing worse. You can't see it. It's on the other side. They got the other elbow clamped down. I'm sitting there and this person's getting ready to jump up and get a rebound. All of a sudden they just go, and they don't move. Somebody on their side's holding them down. Get that first foul, because if you don't, I guarantee what's going to happen. They can't get up. They're going to push that player away and get the rebound anyway, and that's probably the one that'll get called. Get help on rebounding situations. Do not leave it up to the lead in the center. That trail sometimes has the best angle to see a lot of rebounds, especially on weak side rebounds. That seemed to be a point of emphasis in the camps and stuff I went to 3 and 4 years ago, and we quit talking about it. Get the trail involved in officiating rebounds. They've got good looks. And get the rebounding stuff stopped. That's one of the things that causes rough play. And I don't think the other one's on here, but I'm going to talk about them because these I talk about all the time. 4 things: rebounding, hand checking, post play, screens, one more, freedom of movement, which covers all of that. Freedom of movement. You know, most coaches' satisfaction or dissatisfaction with the officiating crew is directly relative to their shooting percentages for that night. You know, most of you that know me, I'm a baseball fan. A lot of hitting, 6 or 7 runs, nobody remembers the error. Shooting 50% from the field, nobody remembers the turnovers. Coach shoots 50% and wins the game. They always talk after the game, our defense was good. He didn't know we shot 50% and beat them. That's it. So they're happy when they shoot well. We can't control the shooting percentage. What causes high shooting percentages? Getting good shots. How do you get good shots? You run your offense with timing. Good shots lead to higher shooting percentage. Some nights you just have bad nights, but overall, that's what happens. So they're trying to run their offense. They're running cutters coming across the lane. If we let them chuck the cutters and knock them off their stride, the timing of their offense is destroyed. The shooting percentage goes down because they don't get good shots. The dissatisfaction of the coach with us goes down because they didn't get a good shot. And we put up with it. Call that stuff. Call freedom of movement. If we make the point guard set up the offense from somewhere around the center circle because he can't move because he's being hand checked or she's being hand checked everywhere, and that first pass starts 45 feet from the basket, there's no timing in their offense. Let the point guard roam to set up the offense. Do not let them get bumped. Do not let them get hand checked. Let them make that first pass to the wing. So we're starting all the offense 30 feet from the basket, 25 feet from the basket. The better their offense runs, the better shots they get. The percentage goes up. Coach's satisfaction with us goes up just because we added 10 points to the shooting percentage. Again, I don't have the data for that. I've got since 1973, noticing that happens a lot, and it does. And I think most people will agree with me. Again, I relate everything to baseball. I have a passion for officiating basketball, but I love baseball. I was raised by a baseball company. So, drives to the basket. We could talk about this, and this is really more of a summer camp where you can set this and do this, but drives to the basket, I'm just going to take a couple of examples here. C, drive basket originates from the C, and you're the lead. You're not going to be rotating. The first thing you're going to do is find out who's going over to help on that drive. That's your person. That's your play in your primary. Find the person going to be the secondary defender. If the driver breaks loose from their defender and gets ahead going to the basket, the lead's still going to have the secondary defender, but now the C is free to watch, see if they get hit from behind, they get tripped, and don't have to worry about that secondary defender. If the lead doesn't have it, we have the block charge right there underneath, and we know the lead, that trail can get involved. Go. Okay. And you know, I'm not into the words sometimes too, you know, the cadence word, which we use a lot too much. You get the second whistle, it's cadence. All that means is if I'm the trail on that play, my God, then my whistle goes off. My God was my cadence. That's how long it took me to say that. Okay, that's my cadence. All right. Drives coming down, right down the middle of the lane. Lead's got it all the way to the basket. Sometimes you're going to have the one leaning on them, and you're going to have the secondary defender. And what I do, you've got a little line that's in an arch down there, and you got to try to see that too. And we're not good at working two plays. I've already talked about that. We work one play very good, but you can get help on that. My gosh, they come down the middle of the lane. Everybody comes over to help. Plays over, people are on the floor, and I'm the lead, and I'm sitting there going, "Did anybody see that?" Well, that's when the center and the trail can go the cadence. My God, what is Jack doing? Whistle. Charge. Okay. Charge. Okay. All right. So talk about that. One of the things you ought to talk about in your pregame the most is handling secondary defenders and drives to the basket. Talk and talk and talk, because it doesn't happen every trip down to the floor, and we are not good until stuff becomes habit. When we get habits, we do it well. But until it is a habit, we don't do it very well. That's just fact. You got to practice that. You got to look at films. And even when it's not a call, put yourself in all three positions on that court. Okay, that drive came from the C, I'm the trail. This is what I would be doing, even though I'm not the trail, I'm the lead. What should I have been doing? I am the lead. What should I have been doing? I am the center. The center, what am I doing if I'm the center? I said, God, I hope Jack gets this call because this is going to be ugly. You know, that's the things you need to be doing. That has to be done in pregame. The next one was on, I think, well,
Curl plays.
curl plays. You're the center. I love this play. It's so well explained in the mechanics book and stuff too. They throw the ball to the low post on the block on the other side. I don't have anybody on my side doing anything. I'm the center. All 8 or maybe 2, there's somebody hanging out or something. What's going to happen? The post player is going to turn and shoot. The post player is going to fake left and drive right, or kick it back out for a 3. And that lead's got to be watching for that kick back out for the 2-man game to get the 3. If they curl away from the baseline and start coming towards the lane, that's my call. I'm the center, even though once they hit in the lane, technically that line's drawn right down the middle. That lead has no look at that play. If they're curling towards me, I need to be setting myself up as the C, maybe moving down. You know, what's that spot, primary spot, free throw line extended. That's where we start. If I see the post player on the other side on the block, I'm moving down, because if they curl back towards me, I want to have that angle, because my lead's not going to have it and my trail's not going to have it, and I'm the only one that can make that call. There's a lot of plays where several people can make that call. Okay, let's work on that. Time
4:47.
perfect. You know, I was listening to you all. That was all stuff I was reading. This is Jack now. Okay. I got to sit in here and listen to new officials talk. They did a nice little clinic and do's and don'ts. And there's a lot of things that happen in officiating. And too many of us base our success on 2 weeks in March. Look, I've had success in March. I don't even call them disappointments anymore. Didn't get it. But you know what? My season's the same every year, November, December, January, and February. A lot of the stuff getting picked for March assignments, quite an honor. You know, my office at my home, I have some plaques. Not plaques, they're actually picture frames, and my credentials for conference tournaments and NCAA tournaments, all in that. And it's all in a big wall. I'm very proud of that. But the thing I'm most proud of is there's probably 10 or 12 people that I don't ever see in March, that I see November, December, January, and February. And I probably talk to them at least once every 2 weeks. 3 of them this morning. Enjoy November, December, January, and February. Let March take care of itself. I guarantee you, you can have some really good games in March and not get picked. But you can have some, in January and February, you may not get picked. If you have a couple of bad ones, I guarantee you're not going to get picked. So work those games, November, December, January, February. Travel with your friends. Thank God we can go out and eat now. Those are lifelong friends. I talk to them all the time. You know, some of them sitting right here in this room. I've watched their kids grow up. They don't know if I worked in March. The kids, oh, hey, Jack, good to see you. November, December, January, February, enjoy it. You're with your friends, you're traveling with your friends. You want to set goals to get in March? Everybody should have those goals, but it's not going to happen all the time. don't take for granted when it does, it's going to happen forever. It could be gone anytime. Okay, that's all I got to say about that. Got any questions?
So with that, I want all of you to know, when I talk about mentors, Jack Jones is a mentor. He's an individual that has not only taught me the game of basketball, but the game of life and how to get through it and how to get through the adversity that comes with officiating as well. And as a veteran official, I challenge all of you to reach out to your veteran officials, because as you notice, Jack goes to the rules, but there's a philosophy behind everything. And that comes from years of experience, 1973. And that's something that I think us newer officials are forgetting about our veteran officials is they may not be up to date with mechanics or the new terminologies like we are, because we're constantly at camp, but there's something to be said about plays that they've seen, and they've seen a million more plays than we ever have. And so take the time and learn from your veteran officials, because you will learn more about the game and life from these veterans. And so please, I ask you to continue to seek mentorship from your veteran officials. So with that, Dana will introduce our executive director.
All right, and Jack, thank you so much. As Nate mentioned, you've been a tremendous asset to the NMAA and the NMOA for longer than I've been here, and you're somebody who I rely upon and respect more than I could ever tell you. So I appreciate you continuing to give back and continuing to make our officials better, and you've made me a better human being. So for that, I appreciate you.
Thank you. You made me cry in an email a couple of weeks ago. I'm getting ready to do it again.
Well, for those of you who were on the executive board meeting last night, you know that I actually physically ugly cried for a good 2 hours last night. You never know when it's going to hit you, and it hit me during the board meeting. So no Kleenex on hand or anything. But Jack, thank you for the presentation. And everybody know that Jack Jones is he's an institution here, but he's one of the best human beings and most approachable people you'll ever meet. So Jack, thanks again. Sally, are you on? And do you have any questions, comments, messages, items for the good of the order?
No, at this point I don't, Dana. As far as, I know we've talked about it over for the past 16 months, but COVID is still around in the game of basketball, and from the governor's office. We should have some updated guidelines next week from the governor's office as to mask wearing. That is going to be the only thing, hopefully this year, that we have to deal with COVID. We will go back to, of course, having the same basketball rules and sidelines and everything that we've always had. It's just going to be the mask wearing scenario at this point. So stay tuned for some updates. The thing that I am concerned about with basketball and some of the conversations up in Santa Fe is it seems that they're separating indoor and outdoor sports when it comes to the mask wearing, and they're also separating vaccinated and unvaccinated. So I'm hoping by the time basketball season rolls around that that's not going to be the case, but we are still working at it, and I will continue to update you as we have the past 16 months. So stay tuned till next week. And other than that, I will be happy to take any questions that you do have.
Have a few minutes before our next session starts at 5:15. Feel free to unmute yourself or raise your hand, whatever you're feeling comfortable with, and we will we'll get your question answered.
Until then, our next presenter is actually the National Coordinator of Women's Officiating, which is a real treat, Penny Davis. So you'll want to log off this meeting and log on to the next. So this person is Jack and my boss, and she's kind of a big deal and a pretty amazing person as well. So we're looking forward to that presentation. So
Absolutely. And if it looks like everybody's a little quiet tonight, I guess the fact that the school year just ended and now we're starting again, everybody's still in what the heck just happened mode. So if you have a question after the fact for Jack, you can absolutely send that my way and I'll get it to him. If you think of something after the fact that you need to ask Sally, you can email her directly. You all know that she's always willing to take a phone call, a text message, an email, whatever the case may be. And obviously, if you need something from Nate or myself, we're here for you. Even when I'm in Indiana, should you need something, I'm always going to be at your disposal, and I'll always be rooting for you. So with that, we'll go ahead and dismiss this session. Get up, get yourself a drink of water, stretch your
5:15.
legs, and we will get started back at 5:15 with Penny Davis. Thank you, everybody.
You need to do it.